Iedere mens denkt er elke dag over na. Wat eten we nu vanavond? Want eten verbindt en bepaalt ook nog eens onze gezondheid en welzijn. Welkom in Groningen voor de eindconferentie van REFRAME. Ik ben Glimina Chakor, wethouder circulaire economie en duurzaamheid. Het is belangrijk dat wij nadenken over het produceren van lokaal en duurzaam voedsel. Maar dat we ook stappen gaan zetten. En dat is de reden waarom de gemeente Groningen meedoet aan het project REFRAME. Het is belangrijk dat we de voedseltransitie vorm gaan geven. En de REFRAME heeft ons echt op weg geholpen. We waren namelijk de eerste gemeente met ons eigen voedselbeleid. We staan nu bij een schooltuin. En hier leert de jonge generatie hoe voedsel verbouwd wordt. Europese projecten als REFRAME zijn ontzettend belangrijk, omdat je van elkaar kunt leren en kennis kunt uitwisselen over het produceren van duurzaam voedsel. Als je bijvoorbeeld kijkt naar de landbouwproducten die in onze regio worden verbouwd, die komen niet op onze borden terecht. En dat is natuurlijk ontzettend jammer. Jammer omdat het niet duurzaam is en het gaat ook nog eens ten koste van de werkgelegenheid in onze regio. REFRAME stopt, maar de beweging naar gezond en lokaal en duurzaam voedsel, die beweging gaat natuurlijk gewoon door. Ik wens iedereen heel veel wijsheid en plezier natuurlijk bij de eindconferentie.
Welcome, everyone, at this final conference of REFRAME. Of course, a first welcome to our partners, the project partners from REFRAME. We would have liked to see you here with us in Groningen at the forum, but unfortunately, we all know why that didn't happen. But nevertheless, we want to give this end to the REFRAME project a really good couple of hours that we can celebrate our results, our lessons learned, and everything that we can think of that makes this world a little bit better through this Interreg North Sea Region project. So welcome. And those online, the participants that do not know about REFRAME or have not participated in it, very welcome. Join us today. And join us actively if you can, because we have a chat. And you can use the chat to ask questions. We will answer your questions. If not today, then we will come back to you afterwards. And we would like to know, when you are chatting, your name and your country, so that we know a little bit where you're from. We know we have participants from Manchester, Slovenia, from all over Europe, so please do so. But let's start. And we know that, of course, a project must be run well by having an excellent project leader. And of course, we'll start today with our excellent project leader, who is Hiltje van der Wal. And Hiltje, welcome.
Thank you.
You work at the municipality of Groningen, the lead partner of this project. And you've worked also, especially the last couple of years, on a food agenda, and also we want to know and hear from you the food transition. Why are you doing it and how are you doing it? We want to hear about your achievements for Groningen. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I will tell you about it. But first, good afternoon and a very warm welcome to you from me as well, from all the project partners. At this final conference of the North Sea Region Interreg project REFRAME towards a regional food frame, we are broadcasting from the city of Groningen, from the Forum building, the award-winning building, which is a library, cinema, museum, and living room for the inhabitants of the Groningen area. And we will show you a short impression of this imposant building, and so you know where we are. This conference marks the end of the REFRAME project, in which partners from Sweden, Denmark, Germany, Belgium and the Netherlands work together to establish a more local, sustainable and healthy food chain. This afternoon we will show you what the project partners have achieved. Since the start of the project in April 2016, partners from the 5 pilot areas in the North Sea region inspired each other to work on a shorter food chain. Partners from various backgrounds work together on awareness and tools to make our local food system more robust. By setting up regional food chains, REFRAME is taking steps towards creating better conditions for food-related small and medium-sized enterprises, social enterprises and initiatives. The project promotes greater diversity in the supply of food, supports innovation and sustainability, and creates local employment, thereby strengthening the local communities. That was or is what we have written in our REFRAME application. In some of the regions, most of the produce was and still is meant for the world market of food production only, hardly contributes to employment. Therefore, quality of life is under pressure in rural areas. That was the main focus when we started the project. For example, in the very northern part of our province, the first project was about reintroducing mustard seed for the famous Groningen mustard. Mustard seed is important for mainly Ukraine and Canada, and then mustard is produced on a large scale in the city of Groningen. Today, over 100 hectares of mustard seed is grown organically in the northern part of the province. Groningen mustard is again from Groningen, and there are new products developed with the seed as well. This has led to positive changes. More people are needed for producing and manufacturing. Different crops are good for the soil. The landscape is more diverse, biodiversity improves, and we can enjoy a genuine local mustard. Since we started the REFRAME project, things have changed in Europe. The EU Green Deal, Farm to Fork strategy for a fair, healthy and environmentally friendly food system was published last year. The figures are shocking. The changing lifestyle and what we eat has led to the fact that more than 15% of the adult population in Europe are overweight. During the first period of the REFRAME project, we had to explain why food was such an important subject in relation to climate and environment. Nowadays, we can refer to the latest report of Europe's Joint Research Centre, which shows that the food system as a whole, from production, processing, packaging, transport, retail, consumption and waste, is responsible for up to 42% of the greenhouse gas emission. In 2012, the estimate of this impact was maximum 29%. I think we should go back one slide. You're ahead of, yeah, thank you. When working on the short food chain, you are involved in many aspects. In rural areas, the most important focus is on production. Since World War II, the goal was to produce as much food as possible, whereas in the last years, the quality became more important compared to the quantity of food. Increased knowledge about the soil and the effect of food production on our climate has started to change people's attitude towards our food system. Through working with local producers and building on a network around the local food chain, different entrepreneurs get in contact and now work on innovations and production of new products. We have seen that it is important to involve new initiatives and consumers in order to develop new markets. And last but not least, creating a positive impact in your own area is rewarding. It is not a straightforward process. The food chain is a chain in which every link is connected to the next. If your production changes, your market has to change with it, just as we need to move along changing demands, circular economy, and solving issues of waste. Through working on REFRAME, we have experienced how supply and demand changes. Food is a significant subject because nobody can live without it. Gunhild Stardalen, the founder of the EAT Foundation, says in her introduction of the cookbook Eat Good, "A lot of people think I am concerned about food, but what drives her is the intention to save lives, improve the health of the people and their well-being. She links food not only to health and well-being and hunger and poverty, but also to other sustainable development goals, like reducing inequality, sustainable cities and societies, and of course, climate change." It is this approach that inspired us to make the film and website The Story of Food, illustrating what you can achieve through food. Food as a tool to improve climate, health, economics, and society. It inspired us to link food to social projects, where people get together to grow, cook, and eat. The story of food shows what can be achieved on different issues when acting on different levels, bottom-up and top-down. REFRAME also aims at policy and decision-making on urban food policies. Food is not an obvious issue for local politicians and managers. We are happy to tell you that we managed to launch a new food agenda for the municipality of Groningen, which was approved by the board of the city of Groningen only yesterday. Many different types of initiatives and pilots have been developed by the REFRAME partners in the different North Sea regions. All these different solutions show ways of stimulating a more local and sustainable food chain. You will hear more about it this afternoon. We hope you will be inspired by our projects.
Yes, thank you so much, Hiltje van der Wal, for also explaining the background of why we started REFRAME. I mean, this is really important, of course, before you start a project with so many different regions in Europe. And at the moment, we now have the honor to have one of those regions in a room in Germany. One of our partners, Tessa Bornemann, she is actually from the Wesermarsch region, not so far away from Groningen. It would have been nice, Tessa, to have you here with us, but I'm glad to see you in good health there on the other side of the border. So you also did a lot of work in the 5 years that we worked together in REFRAME. And as far as I know, you're now going to take us with you into your region and show a little bit how you worked on the short food supply chain. Is that right, Tessa?
Yeah, hello everyone, and a nice welcome from Germany. I'm working in the rural district Wesermarsch and want to tell you something about the German partnership and about the transnational exchange. Next slide, please. Yeah, the German partnership consists of 3 partners: the Diaconie Charity of Oldenburg, the Grassland Center of Lower Saxony-Bremen, and our rural district Wesermarsch. Next slide, please. The Wesermarsch is a pilot region here in Germany, and the characteristics are that we have mainly grassland with beef and milk farms. Next slide, please. And only a very small amount of cultivation of fruits and vegetables. And this is accounted by the soil conditions here in the region. Next slide, please. And this is a reason why we have only a few direct sellers of regional farm products, like farm shops, and where you can buy local products. And here in the region, the milk and the beef are mainly distributed to the big dairies and the big slaughterhouses and are not processed by the farmers themselves. And this is the reason why we focus our project work not to the direct sellers, but rather to the B2B market. So we want to support the partnership between regional producers and big consumers like public canteens. And another important topic for us was the food education, especially for the children and the educators. And by the help of the REFRAME project, we achieved to use more regional products from the next school year, 2021 and 22, with a new tender for the catering companies. And in Germany, it is very time-consuming and it needs a lot of effort to change the products in school canteens or in public canteens. And so it's a nice success for us that with the help of REFRAME, we could change the school canteens in the future here in the region. Next slide, please. And for our success, it was very important that we have the transnational exchange with our partner countries, and especially the partner meetings, the physical partner meetings, which took place twice a year for over 3 years, for over 3 days, or with the combination of theoretical work in terms of lectures or workshops of the REFRAME topics, and as well of the visits of good practices in each region. So some of the best practice examples we visit you can find in our online resource center as well, in our REFRAME homepage website. And for example, we visit the Rickerings or milk houses in Germany. And next slide, please. You find here some impressions of our partner meetings. And yeah, the importance of the transnational exchange is that we get an insight on which topics and projects our partners are working on. Furthermore, it was possible to transfer good practice examples in our own regions. So, for example, the Rickerings out of Sweden, you can now find in the Netherlands. And we have the opportunity to share our own learnings with our partners and get feedback from them for other further project work. And it was very, very interesting that after every partner meeting, we create a very inspirational common spirit. and it spends a lot of motivation for the future. And it supports the virtual exchange between the physical meetings by emails and virtual contacts. This was very, very nice. And we in the Wesermarsch country had the opportunity in May 2019 to invite our partners here to Germany. And then a regional TV production attended us over the 3 days and shot several short films. And one of the short films we want to present you. And please enjoy the video.
REFRAME beschäftigt sich ja mit nachhaltiger Produktion, Vermarktung regionaler Lebensmittel, und das finde ich ist ein Fund auch gerade der Wesermarsch. Wir sind die größte Grünlandregion im Norden Deutschlands. Wir haben sehr intensive Milchviehhaltung, und alle Produkte, die in diesem Zusammenhang produziert werden, haben wir natürlich auch ein Interesse daran, dass sie sehr schnell zum Verbraucher kommen, dass hier viel mehr auch an regionaler Vermarktung stattfinden kann.
Diese Veranstaltung ist für uns sehr wichtig, um zu sehen, was machen denn eigentlich die anderen in anderen Ländern, die Partner aus anderen Ländern in Europa, die ja andere Projekte haben als wir, und wir wollen da gerne auch von lernen. Das ist für uns sehr wichtig. Und zum Zweiten ist für uns hochinteressant, mal ein anderes Netzwerk zu erleben als unser übliches. Für uns ist es dann hochspannend, auch die Dinge, die wir lernen in diesem Bereich, in diese sozialen Konferenzen, die wir haben, mit einzubringen. Und umgekehrt da wieder etwas wegzunehmen, was wir vielleicht bei REFRAME mit einbauen können.
We didn't start REFRAME just because we needed something to do, we had time on our hands. No, we thought that in local communities, in rural areas, together with the cities that are in between there, you could really do something in building a regional food frame. And that it is a very logical thing to try to combine what is produced in a region, what is processed in a region, with that what you consume in a region.
Every half year we talk with each other and we learn from each other. And also this year I really I want to learn a lot from the international partners. And it's really nice that it is in the Wesermarsch this year, because the Wesermarsch is quite a similar area compared to the Westerkwartier, where I come from.
Fragestellung ist einfach, wie können wir die regionalen Produkte und die Wertschöpfungsketten, die Lebensmittelketten so organisieren und unterstützend organisieren, dass die Produkte vor Ort auch zu kaufen sind, auch im ländlichen Raum, in der Stadt, und dass auch Großküchen diese Produkte in entsprechender Qualität und Zahl regional beziehen können.
Man muss auch wirklich sagen, dass in diesen transnationalen Treffen dieses Miteinander im Vordergrund steht, dass man ja einander verstehen will, da übersetzt man dann. Und so denke ich, wenn man dann hier vor Ort guckt, was die Stakeholder, was die hier eigentlich in das Problem reinbringen, und dass man direkt in Kontakt tritt, dass man sieht, dass man ähnliche Probleme hat, dass man einander helfen kann und unterstützen kann. Das macht ein Interreg, ein transnationales Projekt aus.
Thank you, Tessa, for showing this movie and bringing back memories, good memories. Brings me also to the point that we saw Hein Braaksma in the movie, and he actually was the project manager, so supporting Hiltje van der Wal for the first, I think it was 3.5 years. So setting up the project and doing an enormous good job there. So Hein, if you're watching, I know you're watching, thanks for that. And the movie also showed that it is important indeed to get knowledge from others. And that's why for this final conference we have also invited some keynote speakers, you know, from outside the REFRAME partnership. We still want to learn, and we are not done, as Hiltje said. This project may end, but we keep on working and learning. So this brings me to Jan Willem van der Schans, who used to work also for the University of Wageningen. and co-founded the Task Force Short Food Supply Chain. Wow, what's in the name? But you're going to tell us all about it. What I find very interesting is that you have been working on developing programs to actually coach farmers and food startups. That is an amazing job, and we are very curious to hear more about it from you. So please go ahead.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and I really congratulate the City of Groningen for pushing on this, organizing this conference in these strange conditions that we are in. So thank you very much for that. My name is Jan Willem van der Schans, and I'm going to talk about short food supply chains and also to illustrate my talk with some of the projects that we're doing in the Netherlands, and I hope it will inspire you. So this is where I'm coming from by way of introduction. This is the farm that I was raised in the south of the Netherlands, very open space, and my brother took over the farm and I went into research. He's always joking a little bit about the research, like the short food supply chains, but I'm happy to say that his children actually are interested in short food supply chains. So it takes a while, but then things sink in. I am indeed a researcher in short food supply chains. I work for Wageningen University. At the moment, I'm self-employed. I was a co-founder of the Rotterdam Food Council, and I was looking up the year. It's the 2013. And I'll come back to that later. Then I was also a board member of several urban agriculture initiatives, which I will talk about later. And I was a member of the Rural Networks Assembly. This is a body in the European Union supporting and advising the Commission on the Rural Development Program, how it works out and how it can be monitored. And then I was also a co-founder of the Task Force Short Food Supply Chains, which I will be talking about later as well. Here are some of the projects that I have been doing. This is the coaching trajectory for farmers that we developed. We call it Masterclass Short Food Supply Chains. The first time that I organized it was in my hometown, the region Rotterdam, the port city Rotterdam, and the farmers around the city. And the objective of this course was to introduce them into the city and to connect them to the markets in the city. And I mean not just the physical markets, but also catering companies, restaurants, and all that. If you look at the participants in the first, this was the first year that I did it, there was a farmer with 600 cows and 12,000 kilograms of cheese production a week. And there was also a farmer with 3 cows and a camping, and he was using the milk to put cappuccinos out at the camping shop. So it was a huge diversity of farmers, but we all, we bring them into a program and they develop a business proposal, a business idea on how to strengthen their position in the short food supply chain. But this was farmers outside the city, but I'm also interested in farming inside the city. So this is a farm, the GrowX farm, a vertical farm in Amsterdam that I was on the advisory board. It's very difficult to grow indoors and still be competitive because in the Netherlands, the horizontal farming, the greenhouses are also very competitive, but it can be done under certain conditions. This was actually also inside the city of Amsterdam, but here the farm is being integrated in an urban development project. This is a prison site, the Bijlmer prison, and a vertical farm is projected in one of the prison towers. And really the idea is here to create urban environments, build environments that are still healthy. So people are here continuously reminded by that vertical farm that you see that you should eat healthily and also that you should exercise a lot. So the idea here is a combination between food production and architecture, which I think is very interesting. and actually the objective of the developing company was to increase the lives of the people. They were saying, okay, if you buy an apartment here, then we will increase your lifetime maybe 3 or 6 months, because this is a healthy environment. So it's quite ambitious. I think it's quite interesting. Then also, as I said, I was one of the co-founders of the Rotterdam Food Council. This was already 8 years ago. I think there will be a speaker after me also talking about food councils. The problem in Rotterdam really was, I'll go back one slide, is that we had a policy, the food in the city policy, where you can see the document there, the policy document, but there was no budget, there was no staff. So it was very difficult to implement anything. Very fortunately, 8 years later in Rotterdam, we developed a proposal for the National Lottery together with the Dutch Nature Conservation Society, Natuurmonumenten, in the Netherlands, and this was actually granted. So this was a grant of 5 million euros to really do all the things that we developed in the Rotterdam Food Council. But now there is a budget, there is a staff, and maybe also there's a higher sense of urgency. So I'm very excited that we have this now in Rotterdam. Then also, I said that I was a member of a board of several urban agriculture initiative startups. This is one of my favorites. This is a kids restaurant in Rotterdam, where the kids learn how to grow food and also to prepare meals with that food. And at the same time, there are chef cooks that probably have become too stressed in their normal jobs. And here they teach the children how to cook food, and at the same time they prepare themselves back for the labor market. So it is multiple goals, and this is one of the reasons why I like it so much. Now, after introducing me, I will go now to the part of the presentation that is about short food supply chains. And first of all, being a researcher, I want to talk to you about the definition of short food supply chains. The European definition is no more than one party between the producer and the consumer. So it's either the farmer sells it directly to the consumer, or there is one party in between. So that's a very easy and simple and also easy to monitor type of definition. But when you apply it in practice, you run into problems immediately, because here is a very famous short food supply chain initiative in the Netherlands, Willem and Drees. They bring the food from farmers directly into supermarkets. But if you count the number of parties in the chain, it is actually 2, because they buy it from the farmer, and then they sell it to the supermarket. So there's 2 parties in between the farmer and the consumer. So, but it is a famous example of a short food supply chain. So the definition doesn't always work in practice. And here's another case where it doesn't work. This is the biggest supermarket in the Netherlands, Albert Heijn, and they actually promote here that they buy directly from farmers and they put it on the shelves because the wholesaler that is in between is actually a dedicated wholesaler, and it's not a party in itself. So it doesn't make any decision in itself. It's the supermarket that makes all the decisions. And therefore, if the supermarket buys it directly from the farmers, it's a short food supply chain. And I got a lot of criticism about that. This is the consequence of this is the consequence of using this definition. But it's the way it is. So we also look at other definitions, and this is one in the focus group on short food supply chains from the European Union, which is not so much counting the number of parties, but really going into the details of it. What is the distribution of the margin in the food production chain? How do parties cooperate with each other? Is there kind of a partnership? Is there a form of equality and transparency? And this, of course, is a better definition, but it's very difficult to establish whether a project is really a short food supply chain. Because, for example, if you look at Willem and Drees, the party that I explained to you in the slide before, we actually got all the data from them, and therefore we could actually check if in their supply chain the margin was distributed differently. And as you can see here, the blue part is what the farmer gets, and the red part is what the wholesaler gets, and the green part is what the retailer gets. And then you see that for the three categories that we researched, potatoes, peppers, and cucumbers, the blue part is always the biggest. So the farmer always gets the biggest. To the left, you see it in terms of relative margin, and to the right, it is the absolute margin. And you see that the farmer is better off with Willem and Drees, and therefore you could say it's a real short food supply chain initiative because it is substantively contributing to a fairer distribution of the margin. So we could establish that, but really to get this data is very difficult. So you can do it, you cannot do it for everything. So the conclusion was that the Willem and Drees farmers did get a better price, so they were better positioned in the short food supply chain, but they also had to do a lot of things for it. They had to wash the vegetables and also to cut them, and they had to really stick to the procedures of the retailer. So I'm talking here about gross margin, not net margin, so they had to make some extra costs as well. And in this example, actually, the story is that Willem and Drees themselves, they didn't calculate too much margin for themselves, so they went bankrupt. So the farmers were better off, but the wholesaler was bankrupt. So it is really very difficult to have a short food supply chain in a supermarket where you are directly competing with the regular food supply chains. So maybe short food supply chains should just not go to supermarkets, but have their own supply chains. So that's one of the lessons. Here, the organization asked me also to talk about sustainability of short food supply chains, and this is the graph that I always use. Here you see, and it is unfortunately in Dutch, but you see what is the CO2 emission burden of different foodstuffs in the Netherlands, and then you see, actually, it's difficult for me to see exactly now because the letters are even small for me. But you see that what is the example here? I think it's the tomatoes in the Netherlands. The tomatoes grown in the Netherlands have a lower. No, the tomatoes grown in Spain have a lower CO2 profile than the organic tomatoes grown in the Netherlands. And the reason is that an organic tomato grown in the Netherlands is in a heated greenhouse, so it takes a lot of energy to produce it. And a tomato in Spain, of course, is just sitting there in the sun, and it takes only one part of the greenhouse when it is being transported to the Netherlands in a lorry, and that's not a big deal. This is the red part of the bar is the real food mile emissions. And so it is not always the case that local food is better for the environment, because even a local organic tomato from the Netherlands has more emissions than a tomato from Spain. Fortunately, when we look at apples, we see that an apple flown in to the Netherlands from New Zealand has much more food miles than an apple grown in the Netherlands. And this is, of course, because it is flown in from New Zealand. So there is a lot of CO2 emission involved. So short food supply chains are sometimes better in terms of CO2 emissions, but sometimes not. You really have to go into the details of it. Another reason why short food supply chains are on the agenda is that they are just more healthy and more tasty than long supply chains. And here strawberries is a very good example, because if you prepare a strawberry for the long supply chain, you are likely to harvest it earlier while it is still green, and then ripen it during transport. But that's not so tasteful as a strawberry that is ripened on the plant and that gets its full aroma, full body of aroma while still on the plant. So this is an example in the Netherlands where a strawberry grower brings the tomatoes to the supermarket directly. And the taste is better because the strawberry has been a little bit longer on the plant, so it developed a richer taste. And here's another example. This is with eggs. This is an egg farmer, egg-producing farmer, and he brings the eggs directly to the supermarkets. Therefore, the eggs are fresher, and he guarantees the supermarket that after 8 days, he takes back the eggs. So these supermarkets have always very fresh eggs, which you can use in some recipes, like recipes where you use raw eggs. But then, of course, the eggs that come back, he has to find a solution for that as well. And he developed his own eggnog. So it's a Dutch eggnog type of thing, advocaat. And he's selling this to the supermarkets as well. And the supermarkets actually really like it because for them it's also an example of circularity. So the eggs that you bring back to the farm are not being destroyed, but are actually recycled and put to another use. So this is also a very successful example of a short supply chain in the Netherlands, even using the supermarket as the retail channel. And another reason why we have short supply chains is, of course, it was already mentioned before, that it supports a nicer landscape, a more biodiverse landscape. And a very powerful example of that is something coming from Friesland. It's the province bordering Groningen. And this is a cheese made from the whole milk. So it's not a cheese made from milk that has already been taken out some of the ingredients, but it's from the whole milk. And and there are a lot of other benefits to this in terms of protecting the grutto, and I looked up what it was in English, but I can't remember it. Godmid, the godmid bird, which is the meadow bird in the Netherlands. And these farmers protect that bird as well, and they do a lot of other things as well. And this is a trend that we see in the Netherlands, that when you do nature-inclusive farming, there are different streams of income adding up at the moment. The word is adding up. So they are looking for eco-environmental schemes from Brussels, but also maybe incentives from the water boards, because this is in the peat meadow area in Friesland. So the water level has to be higher, because then we have less CO2 emissions and methane emissions. So this is an example where all these benefits add up to a better price for the farmers. But my message is also that that this building, when it has as a foundation a very nice cheese, then actually this is a very good strategy, because if one of the parts of the building falls apart, you still have all these consumers who like the cheese, and this is a larger number of voters than just the farmer community. So you're actually mobilizing a whole community of people that love your cheese. So I think it's a very good example as well. And now we come to some maps. I was fortunate that years ago I got a question from our National Census Bureau, and they asked if I had ideas what to put in the national census for farmers. And then I said, let's put in whether they are supplying in the short supply chain. And that question got accepted by the national government, and it became a standard question in the national census for farmers. So therefore now we have a lot of data in the Netherlands on which farmers are involved in this, in a short supply chain, which sectors are involved, and also how big is the social the short food supply chain. And this is a province where we did that research first. It's Gelderland, and unlike what I expected, I was expecting that the farms around Nijmegen which is a progressive university city, that there would be much more farmers there involved in short supply chains than, for example, in an agricultural area as the Betuwe, to the left of Nijmegen. But as you can see here, actually in the Betuwe, there's a lot of short food supply chains, and also to the north of this Nijmegen agglomeration cluster, where we see Barneveld. And I found out that, and it was also mentioned by the speaker before me, the reason is that whether you need a processing step between when the farmer grows it and he sells it to the consumer. And in the Betuwe area, fruit is the main crop. So fruits, you can just pick it from the tree, an apple, and then sell it directly. If you look at the Barneveld area, this is chicken. And chicken, they have to go to a slaughterhouse, and then you are not always quite sure that you get your own chicken back. So it's difficult to organize the short supply chain, but the laying eggs, you can actually sell them directly. So for the laying eggs, you can see that Barneveld is a hotspot of short food supply chains, but for the chicken and also the dairy farmers to the right, to the German border, the dairy farmers, it's much more difficult to organize a short supply chain. So I think it was very interesting, and the speaker before me was confirming this, that you really have to look in what sector you are and whether there is a processing step in between. This is another province of the Netherlands. This is the province where I'm from, the Zuid-Holland, and you see the conglomeration of Rotterdam and The Hague, and then you see this very dense area of short food supply chains, and this is where our greenhouse industry is. So to my surprise, and to the surprise of many of my colleague researchers, the greenhouse sectors actually are involved in a lot of short food supply chains, whereas the image is that they are very export-oriented and that we feed Europe, but actually there are a lot of them in a short supply chain, and this is because what I already said before about our supermarket. Here you have a bulk transport of tomatoes directly going to the distribution centers of the supermarkets. So there is no party in between anymore. There's a direct deal between a supermarket like Tesco's and a tomato grower, and so they make direct deals. This is what you can see here on the map, and I think that's an interesting development. So it puts a different perspective on what is a short supply chain. Here, now this is the last part of my presentation. I go into the relation between short supply chains and COVID, the outbreak of corona disease, and here you can see to the right. You see, and I'll make it a little bit bigger, you see what are the increases in sales during COVID. And the peak increase is supermarkets. It's very difficult to read, but the peak increase that you see is supermarkets is more than 200%, 207%, sorry, it's farmers markets, farmers shop, direct sales from the farm. I'm sorry, I'm confusing all of you and also myself. And so the biggest increase is the farm shops. And the supermarkets is to the left is the smallest increase, and this is good news for farm shops because people were sitting at home. They wanted to go out. They wanted to have the fresh air, so they were cycling to the farm shops. There was not so much tension as in the supermarkets in the big urban centers where people are really crawling over each other. So it was really like a nice outing for the family to go to the farm shops and then enjoy the food directly provided by the farmers. And really the question, of course, is this a windfall gain, or are the farmers able to keep that trend and that people will continue to go to farm shops even if the COVID crisis is over? And of course, we all think that people will not have all the time to cook anymore and that they will probably go back to the supermarkets again. But the question is out there, and we will see what happens. I should say that farm shops have been increasing for years already, even before COVID. Farm shops, because they have such a convenient assortment, and people like this. People don't like complicated shops anymore. They like very simple shops. So farm shops were already increasing, and they did increase a lot from the COVID, but we have to see what happens afterwards. This is another learning from the COVID crisis. It was actually a surprise to me, but the thing is that I always give as an advice to farmers that move into short supply chains, I give as an advice, do something different from the supermarket. So farmers come up with culinary vegetables or with cauliflowers that is purple rather than green and stuff like that. But as it happens is this the catering and the restaurants they stopped, and this culinary vegetables didn't have a market anymore. And it turns out to be difficult to introduce them in the supermarket. Like, for example, a yellow courgette. People think, I don't know how I have to prepare it, so I stick to the green courgette. So these culinary products didn't find a consumer anymore. And there were large solidarity actions, and the task force Short Food Supply Chains, which I co-founded, we were also in one of them. It was called Support Your Locals, because these artisanal and culinary products didn't find their way to the supermarkets, and they were cut off from the restaurants. So they had to be promoted. And one of the comments that and this was a big success. A lot of new solidarity groups popped up in the Netherlands, and they were collecting the stuff from the farmers and they were distributing it to the consumers. And then, as a task force, we said, okay, but is this are these new initiatives, or is this actually enforcing the old initiatives? So we were worried that these new solidarity initiatives would probably fall apart if COVID is over. And much to my surprise, this is what happened. One of the startups in short food supply chains, Boerschappen, actually bought the addresses from one of these solidarity initiatives. So here you can see that entrepreneurial spirit and commercialization of food, the food movement, which I always considered a commons myself, I considered it a movement, a social movement. We now see that it actually in the Netherlands is so important already that people buy and sell address databases, which I think is also interesting result of COVID. And then another lesson I found out is that there are actually supermarket owners in the Netherlands who also own restaurants. This is actually quite common. And in these cases, they were very easy. It was easily possible for them to ask the chefs from the restaurants that were closed to come up with new prepared meals in the supermarket. And this is one supermarket, an Albert Heijn supermarket, where actually they replaced the restaurant that they had and that had to be closed. They replaced it to the parking lot from the supermarket, which was open, and they were providing you like a beach club experience during COVID lockdown. I think it's very interesting that you see that these supermarket entrepreneurs are also in the restaurant business, and therefore they are more easy to adapt to the COVID crisis. This is also another example of that, and I think it is my last example. This is, I translated the headlines in English for you. This is supermarket owners, so not the managers from the central supermarket organization, but the franchise owners from the supermarkets. They actually stepped up their efforts in the Netherlands to be part of short food supply chains. They were really actively looking for farmers to connect themselves to the retail, to the supermarket, maybe because they saw that the farmers' shops were so much increasing in turnover. It could be like that. And here's an example where a supermarket owner actually asks 10 of his colleagues, this is around Deventer, to go and collect the produce directly from the farmers and to establish kind of a regional product range in the supermarket. So I think that's a very surprising and interesting consequence of Corona. And also what we find out is that many of the farmers that go to a supermarket, they start with the purchasing manager, but the purchasing manager, his job is to give us as low as possible a price. But if you go to the franchise owner himself or to what is called a concept manager, then actually they are able to position the local supermarket as a kind of in a kind of a community of farmers as well, and then they are able to offer different price proposal to the farmer. So I think that was an interesting lesson from COVID as well. Now I go finally to a challenge that the organization asked me. They said, okay, what do you know about the farm to fork strategy, and can you comment on that? And here are some quotes, which unfortunately with my glasses and quality of eyes I cannot read anymore. Okay, here I can see them. I myself and also some of my former colleagues from Wageningen actually are quite skeptical about the ambitions of the farm to fork strategy, because some of my colleagues commented, okay, they want to do something about sustainable consumption, but really the EU has a strong jurisdiction in farming, but not so much in consumer policy or health. So that is one doubt that we have about the farm to fork strategy. And then another is, okay, sustainable farming is fine, but a lot of the budget of Brussels is still going into hectare support and not into conditions such as sustainability. So this really has to be solved, and it's now part of the national budget, but we don't know how it works, how it will work in the different member states. And there is a fear that in some member states they will be very relaxed about these conditions, and in other member states they will be more serious. So many of my colleagues have doubts about this farm to fork strategy, but actually then I read your paper on it, your summary, and I really got enthusiastic about all the good things that you do, and I was expecting that I couldn't read this slide myself, so I put it on a paper here. What you do is online sales and distribution in the REFRAME project, business-to-business marketing, matchmaking, consumer labels, cow release events you have been organizing, whatever that is. It's said on the website that you were promoting dialogue with it. Procurement policies, educational programs, peer-to-peer networks. So this is what is called in academia a small wins approach, which is kind of a different approach to the transition. The transition can come from top-down policies, which you see on your left hand, the farm to fork policy, but it can also come from bottom-up initiative. Many small steps are, with hindsight, probably also a big step, and this was the impression I got from the REFRAME project. So thank you very much for your attention, and I congratulate you with the results of your project.
Thank you so much, Jan-Willem. Yeah, and the compliments at the end of your speech. We, of course, as REFRAME Partnership, we gladly take them with us. I do get some comments on the chat, and for the people online, please ask your questions. Even if we have passed this section, as we said before, we will answer your questions anyway. So even if we have to go back tonight to ask Jan-Willem, there is this urgent question, please answer us. But we get some comments also from the audience that they really like the examples that were given. I think it's part of, spreading the word is also to give examples that people can see, yes, it is possible. Maybe it's also good that you showed the one that went bankrupt, like you might take a risk doing this. But anyway, it's good that we talk about it, that we show examples, what does work, what isn't working. And I had two questions. One about the sustainability that you talked about, which is really also, of course, CO2 emissions. But I think more and more we're also talking about the biodiversity, as you talked about, but also maybe more the social and economic environment sustainability triangle that could be supported by this short supply chain. Maybe you can say something about that triangle.
Yeah, no, it is true. You are right that if we only look at CO2 emissions, it's a very one-dimensional approach to short food supply chains. But the reason why I go into this definition so closely is because in public procurement, for example, they have to come up with conditions. And if you say social and economic, it should be good for the social relations and the economic. Then the people, the procurement officers don't know how to grade the different proposals. So they need very sharp definitions. And one of these is the number of parties. That's, you know, as a start. That is, and it's hardly ever in the Netherlands they can organize it with only one intermediary. So it's already a big challenge, and they prefer like standards like organic or 50 kilometers around the market or something like that. They prefer. I think you have to do it both ways. When we study short food supply chains empirically, we see all these different dimensions that they are good for. But yeah, when it comes to public procurement, you have to come up with clever conditions, clever formulations to really target what you want to target.
So in that case, it might also be an idea to, for example, here in Groningen, to really look at the produce that comes from this region, as we have examples of grain that was really growing very well on the soils in Groningen. And now initiative is there to actually bake bread with that specific grain and then commercialize, like, this is the grain from this region. We now bake the bread and we show, also that's interesting, we show every step that is taken to get from that grain to the bread that you can buy on the market.
And then the consumers can actually check, if they go on the bike, whether this grain was more biodiverse. And they can check what is the quality of the jobs involved in the milling and in the bakery. So because it is close to you and it's not somewhere in Canada or whatever, you can actually check it. So that is a quality in itself, I think. So I am strongly for promoting all these different aspects. But as I said, legally, you have to come up with clever suggestions. But it's true. You can do, like we are now, I think we are beyond the stage where we only tell inspirational examples to each other. And we are now in the stage that we actually try to see, like with the cheese, what is the biodiversity gain? What is the water buffering capacity of the field? What is the CO2 carbon, the sequestration? So, if you quantify these, they become more important in policy decisions. So this quantification is getting more and more important.
So I can imagine you also liked the transparency around these projects, so that people do know what is happening and then can make their own choices as well.
Yeah, and I think actually also in the task force we organized a track about data. There's a whole new world out there to really support this transparency with direct sensory measuring of stuff like that. So directly, not just mediated through some calculation that is done by some research institute, and the consumers don't know what it is about, and actually also the farmers don't know what it is about. If we talk about nitrate deposition, nobody knows exactly how it is being calculated in the Netherlands, and this is why it is such a big deal. But if we just take out more sensors, and we give people access to the data produced by these sensors, I think it will increase the debate tremendously, because it will be more intelligent. The measures will be more intelligent. And we all know it also from COVID, that everybody has an opinion in the Netherlands about the intelligence of the measures, and there should be more data gathering around it. And I really like actually the pilot projects that are now being granted, allowed by the national government, because we need more data on what is really going on, and then we can have more intelligent policies.
Of course, as consumers, we also like the romantic idea that, buying from the farmer is it's sort of, I don't know, a narrative maybe is the good word. But also, as you said, in COVID times, when it grew, the numbers of people that were interested in buying a local box with vegetables, I think it works well when then again they say, okay, this project comes from that farm, and here is actually a recipe, and it's very, one, I don't know the word exactly, one experience or something like that, the narrative that we get then from the farmers. But on the other hand, if we really want to make a move, as we read in the Dutch newspaper this morning, for Europe to really move to organic farming to rise with 30%, then different things should happen, I suppose, than our romantic narratives. I just got a message that there is a question on the chat, so let me just look at that. A question to Mr. van der Schans. Which segment of consumers is most active in buying local products or is involved in this sort of supply chains?
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Actually, there is a report in Dutch out from my former colleagues just this week about the consuming side. And also there is an older report years ago which makes a nice distinction between different consumer groups. And then they call this the post-materialists. These are the consumers that are into protecting the planet, all these non-material values. That is, of course, so the green buyer is the green, that is one. But interestingly, also the traditional buyers, so senior citizens, are actually always, because they go to the farm and they say, okay, this is the way milk really tastes, or this is the way yogurt really tastes. So the traditionalists are there. Then also there's an important third one is the hedonists. These are the people who say, okay, I was in Groningen and I bought a jar of the Groningen mustard, and I went to the farm and I saw the field and I know the farmer, he's in my mobile phone. So it's really like, okay, you are hedonistically relating yourselves to the food system. That's another one. And then there are a couple of more, but I think these are the three biggest ones. So the green consumer, and then you have the senior consumers, the people that still know what the products were before industrialization, and then you have like the hedonists. Maybe there's some category that I forgot.
I hope this answers your question, Frans Stra. From Westerkwartier, by the way. Thank you for your question. If not, you just type in the chat and we come back to you. I also had the research that you're just talking about, consumers. We, of course, have involvement of many students in the REFRAME project, and we will hear some of them later on. But we also had a graduate. He actually finished his studies, but it was on the link between, the need of the consumer. When is he or she willing to buy the products? And the last 6 months, this is for all the REFRAME regions.
Okay.
So, and we wanted to see the difference between them. And of course, it was COVID times.
Yeah.
So what we saw was a little bit also from environment kind of issues moving to local entrepreneurs.
Solidarity.
Like, yeah,
solidarity.
Like you showed with your support your locals.
Yeah.
So, and some of the partners were also a little bit surprised. So like, okay, so when economy comes in and to support your people around you, so that is also something that marketeers and policymakers should take into account, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's also, this whole idea that, like there is a big world out there that we cannot control, but that there is a smaller world. And we should organize that we are happy in the smaller world. I think that's a big trend. But I also would actually like to point out that when we do coaching for farmers, we also say that sometimes you don't need to tell that whole story. Like, for example, in Rotterdam, there is a French fried company. I actually saw one here on the market as well in Groningen, a different one than in Rotterdam, but I think in Groningen it is the same lesson. And in Rotterdam, they buy the potatoes directly from the farmers, but it is not part of their story to the consumers. It was not. Today it is. They just the fries. They just had a superior quality, and that was it. So you don't always have to explain to the consumer your whole story about I'm protecting the climate and I'm saving the planet and all that. Sometimes consumers just want to get good fries, but still you can organize it locally. That is, I think, the challenge for the future. Like that, your milk that you buy has already some biodiversity benefits, or some that it is not completely torn apart and then reset again, but that it still is just whole milk. I think people will just taste it. Okay, this milk tastes differently, and they don't always need to hear the full story. But they just taste it and they think it is nice, and that is probably enough. I always tell farmers, if you are in that market, then you are in kind of in the mainstream market, and that's probably also an interesting market.
And then maybe they are willing to pay a little bit more as well.
Because yeah, exactly.
We didn't even go to that, but we won't go into that. Time is up, it says there.
Time is
up. So, really, really interesting.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's nice to have a conversation, face to face.
Sure, it is.
I'm really enjoying that.
Sure, it's the same for me, so sure.
So thanks a lot, and please stay with us the rest of the conference.
Okay, thank you.
Here an applause. We forgot about that. We should have had a... Just to round this off, and also before the break, we will go to our next keynote speaker. We always say last but not least, and I think in this case that is very true. We talked about consumers a lot the last 45 minutes, and consumers, that is us, isn't it? So us citizens, we are the consumers, and we want to know more about our local food systems, and we need to be informed as well. So we are now moving to Christine Pohl, who is actually co-founder of the Berlin Food Policy Council of Berlin in Germany, and she represents a broad coalition of citizens. So Christine, please tell us your story.
Yes, hello. Thank you for the invitation to this conference, and I'm really excited to learn about all the things you've achieved in the REFRAME project, which I hadn't really heard too much about before, so I'm very excited about it. I am a bit envious about the not being there face to face with you, because that sounds like a very very nice thing to have at the moment, but I can only be here in Berlin and not join you face to face. Could you start the presentation, please? First slide. So I'm going to start by just telling you why we established a food policy council in Berlin. Actually, there's not really that much I can tell you that is new to you. Our food system, our global food system, is at a dead end. And about 10 years ago, I was working for different NGOs on global food, on trade and agriculture, on corporate accountability. And I was, like many other people, I was really, really fed up with a global food system that exploits people, that damages the environment worldwide. And I decided that I would need to work not only at the international level, but also to work on the local level and make sure that we create local food systems that don't rely on these damaging global food systems, on the damaging global system. And luckily, I was not the only one in Berlin who thought so. And in about 2013 and 2014, we started talking about how to change our local food system in the region. And very quickly, the idea of food policy councils came up. We looked at how they had developed in the US and in Canada and also in the UK in the past years, and in the US even since the 1980s. Next slide, please. And we decided that we really need to do something to start shaping the food system in our region the way we want to shape it. So in 2015, we had a first network meeting where we invited people from different areas of the food system, so from producers, urban gardeners, food manufacturers, activists, retailers, educators, and very quickly we agreed that we really do need a food policy council in Berlin. And then we started moving and had lots of meetings, sort of like the one you can see in the image. That's basically what we do. We stand around, people come together, stand around, sit around and discuss. And we started discussing what our vision of future food system is and how to organize ourselves around it and how to get policymakers to adopt these visions and create policy frameworks that would actually help us achieve our visions. The structure we agreed on is that we have an open assembly twice a year where everyone can join. So there's no formal membership in the Food Policy Council. And the assembly agrees on the general direction of the council. And it also elects a speakers circle every 2 years. And the speakers are the ones who represent the Food Policy Council to the outside, and they steer the process of developing positions, and they can also initiate projects. There are also open working groups. They usually form around specific projects, and I'm going to tell you about some of them in a minute. But first, maybe on the next slide, let me clarify a bit about our role, because we see it as our mandate to give civil society a voice. And we just mentioned consumers. Actually, we prefer to talk about citizens, because citizens are the ones who actually have a democratic voice, or who we see having a role. Rather than just buying things, we want to actually be there to also decide things. So we are a platform that brings together the different players or the different citizens in the local food system. So we bring them all together to develop positions and policy proposals. And I think it's important to recognize that we actually do that when we think that policy proposals are in order or that demands are in order. So we don't wait until we're asked by policy makers to give them advice. We also propose our demands even when we're not asked for any advice. I think that is one of the main differences maybe of the Food Policy Council in Berlin, but also a lot of other German food policy councils have developed in the past years. And compared to the UK or to the US, we are almost all are civil society initiatives. So we're not part of the city administration. We're completely independent organizations. And we did discuss this in the beginning a lot. So who do we want to be and where do we want to place ourselves? And we decided that we do want to be independent because we want to nag and push and criticize and be uncomfortable when we want and when we think it's necessary, rather than just wait for the moment that policymakers ask us for advice. So we are a pressure group, basically. And also we don't want to rely on the changing tides from one election to the next. At the moment, there's a green center-left government in Berlin who welcomes our advice most of the time, some of the time, not always. But we have elections in Berlin this year, and who knows what's going to happen next. There is, of course, the drawback that our positions or the proposals we develop are recommendations rather than, or they're demands. But we're not at the heart of policymaking. So policymakers can always choose to follow our advice, our recommendations, or they can disregard them, or they can adapt them in some way or the other. And it's not always the way we like it. So it's not always completely satisfying. But we still think that this pushing and uncomfortable role is an important one that we don't want to leave. But maybe also it's good to clarify that we are a citizens group, so our demands always have the lens of what is good for citizens or for people, because people are the ones who have a human right to good food. So we generally don't really think about what is good for companies or what is beneficial for companies, but I would say ideally companies work with the same lens. So there are a lot of small and regional companies that are part of the Food Policy Council, and we work together to develop proposals that help these companies produce good and sustainable food for the people in the region. I have to say it's not always so clear cut. So there are company representatives in the Food Policy Council. They are there as citizens, but they do bring their company interest into the Food Policy Council. But so far, it hasn't been, we haven't had like big conflicts of interest between a company interest and a general interest of the Food Policy Council for the people. Next slide, please. So what have we achieved? Right from the beginning, we pressured policymakers for a food strategy in Berlin. So Berlin has 3.5 million people, and it didn't have any strategy at all to how to feed people with food or with good food. We succeeded to put food on the agenda of Berlin policymakers. In 2016, there were local elections, and we asked all parties on their policy plans for the food system. And then this Green Center-Left coalition took over, and they wrote a coalition agreement, which I copied the title of in the bottom left corner. And in that coalition agreement, there's a commitment for the coalition to develop a sustainable local food strategy together with the Food Policy Council. So for us, it was actually quite a big success that we were named in the coalition agreement as a partner. And for this process of developing a food strategy, we developed a set of policy proposals and demands and fed them into the process. So this is our catalogue of demands you can see on the right side. That's the title page. And it has 9 thematic fields, which I'm not going to talk about all of them, but mainly it's about regional production and processing, also about short food supply chains and food waste and communal catering and also food education, and always the lens, how to produce good food for people. Although the proposals in the catalogue are, a lot of them are aimed at helping companies produce that good food, because that's the intermediary, of course. Overall, we did criticize the whole process of developing the food strategy a lot, because in our view, it was not actually transparent enough to the public what's being developed and by whom and who gets invited to the process. And there was not very much possibility for public participation. We also criticized the outcome of the whole process, because in our view, it's not an actual strategy that came out of it. It has no vision. There's no goal in the paper that the Senate presented. So there's no roadmap with steps to reach a goal. So what the Senate presented is an action plan that lists different actions. And I think it's a good first step. And it does include some good actions, including some which we have proposed. But we are still waiting for the formulation of an aim, somehow like reaching a climate just and socially just food system, which for us is our main aim and our main goal. And so I think there's still a long way to go if we want to achieve that, because we actually need a real strategy to move towards it. Next slide, please. But in the meantime, of course, we are doing a lot of activities to try and reach this climate just and socially just food system. And this has a lot of images. I'm just going to talk you through them quite quickly. So the top left image is what we generally do. We stand around, we bring people together and make plans and discuss proposals. But we also have our own activities and projects. So at the top right in the orange bubble, it says all together at the table, bonding through food. And this is a project where we come together with migrant communities to cook and eat together, and also to share experiences. And we developed this because we want to know what, for example, migrants think of the food system and what wishes they have for the food system, because we think that the food system needs to work for everyone. So we also need to listen to everyone's perspectives about it. And I think this is also because, well, like many civil society initiatives in the global north, many of you probably who are listening, we are a very white and academic group, and I think this is a big problem, because if we want to achieve a food system transformation, we really need to take everyone on board, and it needs to work for everyone. So this project is one attempt to break out of this bubble we're in and get more perspectives on board. In the center left, this is our ad for a big action conference we organized last November. where we brought together activists from the food transition movements, but also from the climate and social justice movements. And we discussed together new ideas and projects for the food system transformation towards a climate just and socially just system. And we also invited policymakers and basically told them what they need to do to support these projects and ideas. This process is still ongoing. We're continuing to work on the different ideas and projects that were developed, but as many other things, it's a bit underfunded at the moment, so we have to see how it goes, but it's a very interesting process. In the center right, I just put this to symbolize the Berlin elections this year in September, and we will be asking political parties again about their plans for the food system transformation. And at the bottom, you can see a project called Food Shift. It's a European project, which is about the citizen-driven transition of a European food system towards a low-carbon circular system. And we are the Berlin Lab, and in the Berlin Lab, we are developing something called Lebensmittelpunkte, which I've written down in the right corner. And I'm going to tell you more about this on the next slide, please. In the meantime, I'm going to drink a drop of water. So this is what we imagine a Lebensmittelpunkt could possibly look like. Lebensmittelpunkte is a German word game for, it includes the words food and center of life at the same time. And we described it in our catalog of demands as well. So it's sort of a decentralized food hub that is an open space where local food can be sold or distributed, and ideally directly from the farmer or with a cooperative in between. So it should be a really short food supply chain, and hopefully without anyone going bankrupt in the middle, like in the example that Jan Willem just presented us. It's also a space where, for example, people can come to pick up their veggie boxes, or where they can just come together to cook and eat and maybe process food, like, for example, the apples they pick, you could make them into juice or make jam. It's also a place where you can just learn skills around food, and where basically the neighborhood comes together and meets and eats and can just exchange views and hang out together. So in the Food Shift project, we're developing a prototype of this Lebensmittelpunkt in one district of Berlin. And then the idea is, of course, to upscale this to different districts in Berlin, and ultimately, if we can, to all neighborhoods and, of course, to other cities. We think Lebensmittelpunkte, these food hubs, are a really cool idea because they are the focal points for us for the food system transformation, because they bring people together, they reduce climate impacts by shortening food supply chains, and they make good food accessible to everyone in the neighborhood, ideally. We developed this idea of Lebensmittelpunkte about 5 or 6 years ago, even a little bit before. We started the Food Policy Council. It was first a small working group that later then became part of the Food Policy Council. And so far so it really took off. The idea, the concept of the Lebensmittelpunkte resonated with a lot of people. And now there are 2 initiatives in Berlin who use the name Lebensmittelpunkt, and they've developed under the wings of the Food Policy Council. They organize regular activities, but they are still quite small, and they don't actually have their own location. So it's not like in the image where you can see a building. So they still lack their location. But then there's 3 other initiatives at the moment who already have a space, and they already organized a lot of interesting activities, and they became interested in the concept of Lebensmittelpunkte, and they're now working with us on developing this prototype of the Lebensmittelpunkt, which should then, so this prototype should also be helpful for other initiatives and other interested people to learn from and to get advice on how to actually start their own Lebensmittelpunkte in different districts. There are many more initiatives who are really interested in the concept, and they have already started working on setting up Lebensmittelpunkte. And the idea or the concept also is part of the Senate's the action plan that the Senate presented. And there is also mention of it in some party election manifestos. So I think there's a lot of interest in this idea, and it has a lot of potential, but of course there's still a lot of challenges as well. So now to the next slide. So this is almost my last slide as well. So back to the general idea of food policy councils. I think food policy councils are really great, and the local food policy councils can bring people together in one area to address the specific problems and challenges in that specific area. So every food policy council basically is different, and that's the way it should be, because every region is really different. Food policy councils can adapt to the local situation, and also the influence is more direct because you tend to know maybe personally the policymakers at your city or regional level, or at least you have a chance to get to know them. So it's also like a tool for direct democracy. And there are challenges. For example, I think Jan Willem said this before me in Rotterdam as well. As a civil society organization, we are constantly underfunded, we're constantly understaffed, we're always working with a very limited budget. There was something on Jan Willem's slide about policy silos. I think that's probably what I understood from it is the silo thinking between the different departments in the Senate or in policy making. That, for example, the Berlin Senate's planning department or health department don't actually think they have anything to do with food. So there's a silo thinking that they don't see that this might be all connected. And then there are other challenges as an organization, for example, as a loose movement, as a movement, we're very open, but it's also a challenge to keep people together and engaged. So we're also in an organizational development process where we're starting to think about having more formal membership, but at the same time try to be very open to everyone so everyone can join. And generally, I think it's a big question how to get more people overall engaged from all different backgrounds, because we can, as I said before, we can only achieve the food system transformation if everyone is part of it. And then, of course, I don't really need to tell you, so there's COVID-19. It's also a big challenge. It really hasn't made our life as the Food Policy Council easier, because online meetings are really just not the same. And we've had to postpone our own speakers circle elections twice already. And we've only got a very reduced interim speakers council right now due to COVID-19. But then on the other hand, COVID-19 has made people much more aware of how fragile the food systems are. And Jan Willem also said this, the interest in alternatives has also risen on the agenda. And I think there's now also a chance to make everything better and create new systems. So I would say to all of you, take that chance. And if there's a food policy council in the area where you live, you should go and join it. And if there's no food policy council where you live, go and establish one. Do it yourself, because it's not that hard. Just try and start. Now, please do my last slide. Thanks for your attention. I've put down the contact details for the Food Policy Council in Berlin there, or directly to me. I'm not the coordinator of the Food Policy Council anymore, but I'm still reachable via that email address I put down there. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Christine. That was really inspiring. And also, as you said, there are some linkages to what Jan Willem just explained to us as well. I got this question in my own head while listening to you. Is it an advantage that you are independent and then have like problems with funding, or would it also be possible to have something like this, which is, I don't know, integrated in some municipality? I know our lead partner of REFRAME has been working very hard on a food agenda. Then doesn't mean automatically actually that there is funding to implement all activities that are written in there. But I was just thinking, what is your experience, and maybe also by talking at other conferences and with other food policy councils, what do you regard as the pros and the cons in that in that position that you have?
I think it has both sides. I mean, as I said, we're not at the heart of policy making, so we can only make recommendations. Whereas if you are part of the city administration, you are actually working directly with the city administration to develop programs or food agendas. At the same time, I've also talked to different food policy councils or people from Food Policy Council who maybe have some councils in Germany have established a mix, so they are civil society plus companies plus city administration, and I think in some respects that's quite productive, and then in other respects they are there's like big breaks on so they're on some issues they can't really move forward because there's resistance from one side or the other. And I think in the end they can't be as maybe as radical as we can be, because we can be as radical as we want and place our demands and continue to nag and be uncomfortable when we think it's not enough. And we that's also the role we're taking in Berlin. We're always basically saying that's not good enough yet. You have to continue. You have to make it better still, because it's only a good start, but you have to do better than that. I think if you're part of the city administration, it's difficult to be as uncomfortable as we are. But of course, on the other hand, you're part of the administration, and you're right at the heart of things. So I think there's pros and cons, and I think it doesn't have to actually be I don't think there's a best way for food policy councils. I think each food policy council in each region has to decide what is best, what could possibly work best in their own city or in their own region, because it could be different in any city, depending on how accessible the administration is and how it is set up and which departments it has, what parties are ruling. But then, of course, that is something that we wanted to avoid, to be dependent on what parties are ruling. So yeah, I think there's no golden answer for this.
No, but you explained very well the pros and cons, and I think this pushing that you can do, it's of course very relevant. There must be this loud voice, not dependent on whatever party is on at the moment on board. So that is really good. I actually get a message that is about the thing you said, the point you made about the diversity of perspectives, which I think you even said twice, which I think is also very relevant and that we might not talk about enough, maybe not aware. The short movie that we showed at the beginning with Toentje, I don't know if you remember it, but there is, of course, it should also be a social goal. Food is something that we all eat every day, so it is linked with everyone. And as you said, the fact that you actually have activities that really focus on the diversity of Berlin, in your case, of the people in Berlin, I think that is really an advantage also of having, well, the food hub that you showed, that where you can have everything in one and where people meet, and so also get to know each other. That is something that food also does, huh? It connects people, and you can use it as a tool to connect people. So I think that was also very good from your presentation. I'm just going to check if there's any more questions. Oh, sorry.
I could just maybe add, sure. Because I think that's, to me, something that I find personally very important, because Berlin or every other city or every region is very diverse. And I think it's a huge problem that many initiatives are basically really only, as I said, white and academic. And I think we really need to make a lot of effort to get out of this. And I don't think we haven't achieved this in Berlin. And it's also this one project we have, it's focusing on migrants, but there are a lot of other groups that we don't have involved yet in the Food Policy Council. And it's a big challenge. And I urge everyone in all of your projects, please try and think that you're not the only ones who should be asked and who should be listened to. But make sure that you are as inclusive as possible, and try to get outside of your own bubble, because I think this is really a big problem for the whole food system transformation. If we want to get anywhere, we need to make it work for everyone, and we need to make sure that good food is actually accessible to everyone, which it's not at the moment.
Which brings me actually to another point that I wanted to ask you. Education, children, we heard about it before today. Do you also really focus on the youth? Are there activities that you implement that try to involve and also maybe, well, educate sounds a bit rush. But I mean, the youth is of course our future, and we have to work with them if we want to include everyone. Is there specific activities that you do on that ground?
We don't actually have direct activities with youth and young people. We probably should have. It's also a question of capacity, but also we see ourselves as, well, we're not an educator, so we don't actually do a lot of education work, but we come together to develop proposals and policy recommendations. What we should probably be doing, and haven't had the chance yet, or haven't had the energy or whatever, the funding, is to get young people together as well, to discuss what, or to listen to them and discuss what they would expect from the food system. We do have, for example, in our catalogue of demands, we have demands of how to make food education better for young children and for adults as well, so that people actually, when they have regional vegetables on their kitchen table, know what to do with them, and also know how to, I don't know, produce jam or whatever, and also just have the resources and know how to, why there is actually a need for more regional and good food, and what the benefits of it are, and what the problems of the global food system are, and all that kind of stuff that everyone here probably knows, but you don't learn in school, and a lot of adults don't know about it as well. So I think so what we're advocating for is for lifelong learning, basically, about food, and to make food education better. But we don't actually do this education ourselves, because we don't see that as our role.
No, I understand, but involving the youth, I think that should be a target group anyway. The same Lumi who asked the question or gave the comment about the diversity of perspectives, she actually says, have you thought about working with cultural facilitation experts to increase that diversity? I'm not very sure myself what she means with the cultural facilitation experts, but if you do...
Yeah, I think I understand.
Okay, good.
Yes, we have, and we do. It's also, of course, always a question of how much capacity we have and how much funding do we have. But both this project with All Together at the Table, and also for a previous project, which was similar, we were working with, call them cultural facilitators, but we were trying to develop the concept together with people, or with someone who is an expert in cultural dialogue, and who has a different background himself. And we were trying to, of course, not just so in the development of the projects, we're trying to not just stay within our own bubble, but to already think together with people who are maybe from a different bubble, so that we don't end up developing something which we think is good, but it probably isn't.
Okay, thank you. And now I also know what it means. Thank you. Very good. So I get a message, time is up. I think we've learned a lot from you. I'm very happy that you wanted to speak at our conference. So thanks a lot. I hope you will stay a bit longer. Also, we have some live music coming up, so I would certainly say stay with us while you get that coffee and go to the loo, whatever you need to do. We have a very, very, I would say, beautiful, beautiful threesome people here. They're called Cuerdas, and I know them for a while. I know you're going to love it, so don't stay too long with your coffee machine. You have to come back behind your computer and get some live music. And we are, of course, the lucky ones. We get really live music. So, Cuerdas, please play your beautiful music.
Oké. Dankjewel.
That was cuerdas. Oh, I wish we could listen to them more. But you know, we have a program. Cuerdas, this whole conference is recorded. So if you want to listen to them again, just go to the website after tomorrow, of course. And then you can see them again and hear everything. So let's go back to the program. As I said before, during the course of REFRAME, we have actually cooperated a lot with universities, schools. So a lot of students have been involved, which was a pleasure for us, and I hope a pleasure for them. We still have a few students working on some projects because we will end this project really maybe April, May. But for today, we have invited 2 students. They actually are from the Hanze University of Applied Science, School of Communication, Media and IT, here in Groningen. That's why they are also here. It was easy for them to come. And together with a lot of groups, there were actually 6 groups of students that worked on, I would say, creative concepts for a REFRAME campaign. And it was really excellent work that they've done. And to show you just one example, we go straight into, before I speak to these lovely people, I go straight into one of the products, which is actually a rap. So, play it.
Yeah. We put to use the local produce. Saying it's expensive is no excuse, because that's not the truth. You don't have to be wealthy to be healthy. It's easy to find, not stealthy. Together we should still be eating seasonal, meaning regional. Because it's reachable, attainable, nevertheless maintainable. It is available and never forget sustainable. We're doing this in name of climate change. We're not from the primate age. We have to turn the page and set the stage. Sustainability, get foods from your vicinity. One stop at the shop or the market. Well-being is our target and it's closer than your armpit. The season we harvest, we bring to the local markets. Is healthy food a requirement? What if you could get it in your environment? You can always have local food if you desire it. Our desire is not the perfect situation, but together we can find innovation for climate change adaptation, fuel our knowledge and create activation, show our motivation as the future generation, in the present being patient but never waiting. There's no way of failing, small steps is smooth sailing. I am stating, reframe and don't be the same. Yeah, there's no way of failing. Small steps is smooth sailing. I am stating, reframe and don't be the same.
We don't want to tell young people what to do. We want to inspire them. So you have to catch them emotionally and say, as the future generation, guys, like we stand up now. Come on, guys, like this is actually us. Like we can do it. And it's about small steps. Like it's kind of like don't tell them what to do, but like make them do it.
Wow. That is like a present, given to us by the students. That is really, really great. And now let's move on. I have here Sonson and Joyce.
Yep.
So wonderful for coming. And I believe you are actually going to represent the 6 groups today and going to talk about your REFRAME campaigns and the good ideas that came up. So please
that's
take the
correct.
floor.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. So I'm Joyce, I'm 21 years old and as mentioned, an international communication student at the Hanze Hogeschool. And together with Sonson, I will today present you our ideas, our products that all of our project groups have created. So yeah.
So first of all, it is as an international student, it is really nice to work with clients.
We have worked with various clients over the course so far, but where we knew that we could work together with REFRAME, it was really nice and also inspiring, as it already mentioned during this Congress, that it's really, food is something we're all involved in, and it's something that excites us all, basically. So that's why when we could come up with a campaign for REFRAME, that really excites every one of us, each one of us. So basically, the assignment, what we did, is we started off with was a PID, that's a Product Initiations document. And the PID actually described everything we wanted to do or achieve during this whole campaign. After what we have conducted the PID, we created the campaign plan. So basically all the students and all the 6 groups were actually diving into the whole local food experience and started to come up with ideas of how we can make this campaign successfully also for REFRAME, but also how we can, of course, achieve a really high grade and also learn a lot from it. So after that we have come up with a campaign plan, we started to actually make the campaign. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you a couple of examples of what we as students have created. Next slide, please. So here is the creative concept. So all the groups actually made a creative concept, and the creative concept are basically the fundamental basis of the whole campaign. So they are quotes, for example, for a healthy food, for a good mood, eat healthy or eat local food. That was basically what Group 6 have made. And all the other groups also made a really beautiful slogan in which they said, okay, this is going to be the base of the whole campaign. Next slide, please. So the media products. So when we have created the PID and also the report, the whole research we conducted, we also dived into the media products. So these are examples of some of the students have made, and these examples are basically posters. So these posters were made for REFRAME, in which they can basically use from now on, as long as they want to target youngsters or international or younger students, they can use these posters as an example. Of course, there are a couple, there is a QR code on it. Basically, it's for the younger generation. So if they have their phone and they see a poster at the Hans University or at the forum, wheresoever, they can just scan it and go directly to the website of REFRAME. That's what we created, just the poster. Next slide, please. Then, of course, social media is something that's really important for international, but also all the students and younger people in general. So we have created, or the other groups also have created, a beautiful Instagram account in which we created some content. REFRAME can use them no matter what. We have sent all the documents to REFRAME. So if they want to use them for their social media accounts, or some social media managers want to start with it, they can basically use everything we have already created. Next slide, please. And then, of course, the Facebook. This was 2 different target audience. We had, of course, the younger people, but also the bit older people. So let me say students and let me say younger people from 17 till 25 and 25 and above, and we also wanted to target them. So that's why we also created some Facebook. Luckily, we had a lot of budget to rent out all the billboards to Groningen. No, that's not true. That was just by Photoshop. But it gives a good example of what we have all created and what we could do and what we also could deliver for REFRAME. Next slide, please.
And then there were also some flyers which gave the comparison between the big food supply chain and the short food supply chain. So the prices of fruit and vegetables in the supermarket comparing to what you pay on the market, so that it would be easier and more tangible and more attractive for students, because that's what we focused really on the students in Groningen, to buy more local food because it is cheaper, it is healthier. So we wanted to bring that out by having this flyer, so that with our student budget, as we have it, that it will be easier for us to eat local and stay healthy as well. And then there was also the website, ideas for on the website of REFRAME, to post recipes, and with the recipes, the ingredients with the prices, so that you can see how much it will cost and how to prepare it, because the step-by-step information would be on there too to prepare this meal. And also a description on where which ingredient was bought, and of course this will be local in Groningen or wherever it was produced, so that this will be very attractive and easy for students to prepare these meals. So that was one of the ideas for changing a bit of the website, that it also will be more attractive and more easier to approach for the younger people in Groningen. And then we also had a vlog and an animation, which was also more or less focused on the target group of younger people, because these days there are a lot of vloggers which we all look at. So to make it very nice and easy and fun also to watch and see things about local food, we decided to make a vlog for the students, and this way they could see places where they have been, places which they know, where they can buy local food, and also the animation to make it a bit more, well, let's not say childish, but a bit more, easy to look at and easy to follow. So that's what we'll look at now, the vlog and the animation created by us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Hello everybody. Today my boyfriend and I went to the market to buy food, to make a nice dinner, to have a little date night. So come along with us.
Buying local food has many benefits. It is fresher, it supports local farmers, it produces less waste, and it is sustainable. And nice to know for us broke students, it is actually cheaper than supermarkets. We are gonna make a risotto. And what is a risotto without Parmesan cheese? We bought it at an Italian stand from this lovely lady. As you can see here, the prices are very good. We needed some mushrooms, so we went for 3 different kinds for a nice variation. We went for mushrooms because according to the guide made by REFRAME, they are in season right now. If you want more information, you can visit their website. Now that we bought our local vegetables and cheese, we can start cooking. I hope this inspires you to buy more locally produced foods. I was very happy because I was so hungry. Anyways, thanks for watching. Bye.
When we think about climate change, we immediately associate terms like deforestation, livestock produce, or fossil fuels as the main origin of the problem. However, many might be surprised that something as simple as our daily shopping behavior can have a huge impact on making the world a better place. But don't worry. You can start small, and step by step you already make a difference. Start by buying local once a week. And saving the environment is only one of the many benefits local food has to offer. Not only does food taste better when it's fresh, but also will you be able to support your local community and help out farmers and local producers in Groningen. You want to make a change but don't know how to start? Then join our Go Local challenge on Instagram, upload your favorite locally cooked dish and win a delicious prize. For a better tomorrow, go local.
Wow, that was amazing, I think. So thanks so much to all the students, actually, also the ones that could not be here. Really, really thanks, big thumbs up. Now it's time to go back to lessons learned from REFRAME. As we said before, we had 5 countries involved, so we tried to give a little bit of each country, and now it's time for Flanders. So we have with us Gaël Stalens, who is actually from the Vives University College in Belgium. And they have really developed it so well, the B2B market concept, and implemented it so well. And she's going to talk about that today to us. Gaël, welcome.
Welcome, Roos. Thank you for hosting the event. It was very interesting so far.
Very good. Well, it's going to be more interesting when you are going to show us your work.
Hopefully.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, my name is Gaël and I work as a project officer at the Expertise Centrum of Agro and Biotechnology at the Vives University College. At this final conference of the REFRAME project, I will inspire you to organize a business-to-business taste market in your region. Inagro, EROF, PCG and POM West Flanders joined forces to investigate how local farmers and farm companies can strengthen their own business and how they can jointly deliver local products to institutional kitchens and other food professionals. In recent years, many initiatives in Flanders to purchase local food were found. The focus of these initiatives was mainly selling from business to consumer. A good practice of one of these initiatives is realization of the quality label 100% West Flemish and Tasty East Flanders. A structured approach to support selling from business to business is missing. The project in Flanders focused on identifying the obstacles for B2B sales and the implementation of good practices to overcome these barriers. The outcome of our research led to the organization of a variety of networking events. For example, the Inspiration Day for chefs of institutional kitchens to a regional hospital that, for the supply of their vegetables, shares the risks of harvest with a local farmer. As a platform for our events, we choose Lekker Lokaal Natuurlijk, or delicious and local, of course, in English, as a recognizable name, so that those who are interested in our activities immediately know what we stand for. The developed website served as a communication tool about our achievements. The first B2B taste market took place in 2019. 100 producers and about 500 professionals were present. During the market, all producers got the ability to make new business contacts and food deals. Tastings were provided for all visitors. The cost of participating in the market was free for both producers and food professionals. At the taste market, all producers were categorized per product, and each producer owned an info stand. They got the ability to fridge their tasters and exhibit promotional material. The food producers were given professional advice from a consultant on how to best prepare for the taste market. The producers were given tips on how to make contact, start conversations, smile, and actively listen to and look at the opportunities together with their potential customers. In other words, to emphasize that local and regional products are made with a lot of passion. The cooperation with external partners is important to create a support base for your event. By working with umbrella organizations, you can better communicate the event to your target audience and thus attract more people. At this slide, you can see which organizations we have worked with. Unizo, that's an umbrella organization for the self-employed and SMEs. Horeca Flanders covers hospitality services and restaurants. And another example is Buurtsuper, an umbrella organization of supermarkets. The exhibitors and visitors were very pleased with the fair and gave us an average score of 81 out of 100 for our taste market. Almost all exhibitors indicated that they have made at least 10 new contacts, many of them even 20 or more. Several exhibitors confirmed that their new contacts were of interest to their business. The conference was for both the producers and the food professionals for free. All 100 producers got electricity at their stand, a table, 2 chairs, a white table napkin, free parking, and a few drinks for free. To organize such an event, it cost us about €40,000. Due to the known reasons, the B2B taste market in 2020 went digital. A video production house made a 30-second promotion video of almost 100 local producers. However, food professionals visiting the digital market could not taste the products. The inspiring video of their businesses, assembled by the REFRAME project, can be used in the coming years as a marketing tool to share their business with potential customers. A win-win for the producers. Many of them already placed their inspiring video on their social media accounts. Plattelands TV, or farming television in English, offered us to show the promotion video on television for an affordable price. Almost half of the producers accepted the proposal of farming television. Additional advertising is welcome during COVID-19 times. If we compare the regular B2B taste market with the digital version of the concept, the regular market is registered as more effective in terms of the amount of new food deals the producers made. However, many producers indicated that it's difficult to measure the amount of new contacts they have obtained through the digital taste market. Also, a lot of their clients do not order new products as hospitality services and restaurants are closed. As a team, we look forward to the future. In 2022, we plan to organize a new B2B taste market. Therefore, we choose a striking and highly regarded location. A football arena would not directly be linked to local academy and a place where local producers gather. We as a team believe that this decision leads to a new niche of clients. During the 5 years of REFRAME, the Flemish region focused mainly on networking and facilitating new businesses. Our recommendation to companies who want to comply with the challenges of the B2B market, we want to recommend to make it the clients as convenient as possible to buy local food and facilitate local producers' business. A major role is provided for policymakers, simplifying procedures and rethink about the logistic organization of our system will be critical. Thank you for listening. Hopefully everything was clear.
All right. Well, Gaël and all Flemish partners, I think we can be very proud of what you were able to do in these COVID-19 circumstances and then still have a production like this. We are very proud of you and your colleagues.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, we did our best to find an alternative for our producers because actually the cancellation of our B2B taste market in 2020 was very last minute as we planned the fair at the end of March. And, almost at the half of March, we were in lockdown for the first time. So we were very surprised that we need to cancel everything. And we already put a lot of work on it. And then first we want to postpone our market to September. But then when it was August, we found like, oh no, this will not work. And in the summer, we start preparing for a digital version of the market.
Which, of course, is a pity for the people not being able to taste it.
Yes.
But on the other hand, you reached a lot of people. And then as soon as it's possible again, and also, of course, they can go to these farmers and taste there. So I think you did a great job. Thanks a lot for sharing with us.
Thank you.
And there's more lessons to learn, also from our Swedish colleagues. We already have Marcus Nyström from, I'm not going to pronounce this right, Local Producerati West. But it means so much as a resource center for small-scale food producers in Västra Götaland. That's better, I think. That provides advice, coaches, and develops small-scale food companies to create growth and employment in the region. Wow. That's quite ambitious, isn't it? But we were always jealous what Sweden can actually reach in a couple of years of REFRAME. So enlighten the whole audience about what the activities were in your region. Marcus, please go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, thanks for a very good conference, and I hope that you will find my little speech as an inspiration. We can see, have you started? There we have the slides, perfect. Yes, Local Produced in West, or Lokal Producerat i Väst, was founded in 2007, and it was an initiative between the region of Västra Götaland and county administrative board. Our goal, or we work to develop small-scale food production in the region of Västra Götaland. And we have today about 240 producers as members, but we also work with approximately 50 or 60 restaurants. Also, so totally we have around 400 members in the network. We work with advising and networking, and also development of small-scale production. It costs €75 to join the network, and in that price, the producers or the companies can have 20 hours of advising from us. We have 5 employees, and we have different specialties as upgrading the production, laws, human resource, selling, and communication. And our goal with the company is to be the leading region in Sweden in local food. Next picture, please. Our main strategy, the focus with this project has been that increase the sale of regional food in the grocery stores. And we can see that the buying patterns has changed a lot in Sweden. Actually, a lot of consumers want to buy sustainability, and they think that sustainability, or they believe that sustainability is the same as local food, so that's very good. During the Corona pandemic, we have also started to discuss the degree of self-sufficiency, and it has also helped us to create an interesting of local food. And if we take Local Produced in West in the middle here, we are like a platform to connect, like the spider in the net, to connect the producers, the companies with the grocery stores, restaurants, or like catering, so we can help them and we create a platform where they can meet. Next picture, please. In 2017, there was a big survey was done by ICA, which is the biggest grocery store in Sweden, and the Union of Farmers called LRF. That survey said that 72% of the respondents wanted to buy local food. So this was a sign for the grocery stores to start to work with the more local food producers, and they created the sign in the back here is called "The best from the neighborhood where you lives." Next picture, please. So 9 ICA Maxi stores in West Sweden started with this project and wanted to have producers who could sell them. And here REFRAME was a very good thing for us to start to work with the small producers to get them into the supermarkets, because you can increase your turnover over really much if you can sell to the supermarkets. And I will come back in the last picture what we reach it. Next picture, please. Yes, we created platforms, like I said before. So one of the platform was mini fairs, where the producer could meet stores and show them the products that they have to sell, and also talk to them in an open way. And the mini fairs were about 4 hours long, so it didn't take so much time for the producers or the stores or supermarkets. Next picture, please. And here is also a picture from this mini fair. And we arranged totally 5 fairs, and we had about 35 to 40 companies, SMEs, on each fair. And we have had at least 25 stores that visited each fair, and this created business for the producers. So it was very, very good. So this created the connection between the supermarkets and the producers. So next picture, please. But you also have to create communication to the consumer. So that's why we started something called Friday Local Food Market. And this was the thing where 4 to 7 producers came together in a local store and did a joint presentation of their products, so they could give to the consumers and create a connection to them. Next picture, please. We also work together with AgroVest in something called Gröna Möten. And this was to have a skill developing networking, where small groups could join together and we could give them advice in product development or selling or whatever they needed. So this is a form of group education, you can say. And very important to do everything right here. So you don't focus just on the supermarkets, but you have to focus on the supermarkets, the customers, the producers. Next picture, please. We also work a lot with communication. When the small producers comes out to the bigger stores, they must have nice communication material behind. And REFRAME came in here and helped the small producers to develop emballage and information to give to the consumers, where they could tell about their companies. So, and this was really popular. Next picture, please. So this is the result from 2017 to 2019. It was decreased with 30% of the total selling of locally food in West Sweden, and that is that 150 producers came into the superstores, and the turnover was 9.6 million euros. So it's quite good result that REFRAME has helped with here. Next picture, please. Some of the consumers didn't want to go to the superstores. Maybe they are too small. Supermarkets, I'm sorry. And then we have this REKO-ring in Sweden. And I think you have a movie that can show the REKO-rings. So please, turn on the movie.
Det var i slutet av 2016, början av 2017 som jag första gången hörde talas om REKO som koncept för småskaliga livsmedelsproducenter att nå konsumenter direkt utan mellanhänder. När vi startade då den 11 maj 2017 hade vi första utlämningen. Då var vi lite drygt 50 medlemmar i den slutna gruppen. Idag då, 3 år senare, så är vi 2000 medlemmar i en kommun som har ungefär 10 000 kommuninvånare. Det finns också preliminära siffror om att det i Skandinavien är ungefär 1 miljon personer som är anslutna till någon Facebookgrupp. Då det växer kraftigt även i Norge och i Danmark. Och vi som jobbar med REKO-ringen här i Götene ser det här som ett komplement till annan handel. Vi tycker det är viktigt att det finns olika sätt att handla mat på. Så det är ett verkligt snabbspringande sätt att utveckla sin verksamhet när man är småskalig livsmedelsproducent.
Jag handlar på REKO-ringen för att jag tycker om att handla av människor jag känner till och köttet är närproducerat. Jag väljer närproducerat istället för ekologiskt kött som kommer från andra länder.
Jag tycker REKO-ringen är väldigt bra. Den finns väldigt nära mitt hem. Så det är ett väldigt enkelt sätt att handla lokalproducerad mat. Att jag valde att börja handla på REKO-ringen handlar nog om just att jag vet exakt var maten kommer ifrån. Och när jag hämtar maten så kan jag prata med de som har producerat den. Så för mig är det lite av nöjet med att handla på REKO-ringen, att få möta den som har producerat den.
Jag handlar på REKO-ringen i Götene för jag tycker det är så viktigt att vi stöttar den här handeln med lokala produkter. Vi har en stark livsmedelsproduktion här i Götene kommun och jag tycker det är viktigt att vi stöttar den också. Här har jag också hittat nya produkter som jag inte hade tänkt på annars. Och det roliga är också att till och med på ICA hittar man en del produkter nu från lokala producenter och det tycker jag är jättekul. Genom att stötta det här också så tror jag att vi stöttar även svensk livsmedelsproduktion. För där ligger vi urdåligt till så att jag vill att fler stöttar REKO-ringen så att det finns fler lokala producenter som hänger på här. Så jobbar vi tillsammans för att få en bättre livsmedelsproduktion i hela Sverige.
Varför vi gick med i REKO-ringen var ju för att nå ut till lite nya kunder och att nya kunder faktiskt ska kunna komma åt vårt jättebra och högkvalitetskött.
Och min man han jobbar i princip bara med REKO-ringen numera för det är han som bakar. Och jag stöttar upp med lite administration. Och vi tycker det är ett fantastiskt sätt att kunna träffa sina kunder och prata om sina produkter och få en närkontakt med dem som man levererar till.
Det jag vill uppnå med att konsumenten då kan få så fräscha varor som inte har någon transport utan det är upptaget några timmar innan leverans finner jag väldigt mycket nöje att kunna leverera det till kunden. Så att jag levererar bra vara. Inte alltid kanske billigt men till rätt pris, till rätt kvalitet.
de människorna som vill köpa bara färskt kan göra det och de som vill välja detaljer får göra det. Så vi har väldigt fritt, så man måste inte köpa lådor utan vi vill att ingen ska få svinn i sina frysar utan man köper bara det man vill ha. Vi håller på med reko främst för att vi gillar det vi pysslar med och för de som också gillar den här typen av köttproduktion. Så vart ska de annars vända sig om inte vi varannan vecka kan erbjuda de här produkterna eftersom det är en ganska smal grej som vi tycker fler skulle ha en chans att välja. Därför lägger vi tid och kraft på att erbjuda saker på reko.
Rekoringarna är ju ett bra sätt för småskaliga producenter att utveckla sina nya produkter, testa nya produkter på en ring. Många av producenterna är med i flera ringar. Vi har producenter här i Götene som är med i 4, 5, 6 olika ringar här runt om i närområdet. Och nästa steg det blir ju att se till att man blir listad i butiken lokalt. Och då ger man plats för nya småskaliga livsmedelsproducenter att fylla den platsen i rekoringen. Så det finns liksom ett bra system för att skala upp sin verksamhet.
Well, thank you, Swedish partners. We know that Rekoring has been an inspiration for many of us. So we're happy that you made such a video that we can always look back and hear from consumers and producers why this is working so well. And also with COVID-19 times, it also grew there. So I hope we can manage to do this same type of solution also in this part of the world, in Groningen, where we will try it in May if COVID-19 allows us. You never know. But we are not yet done. We have 2 other partners. We have Westerkwartier and we have the organization Taste of Denmark in Denmark that we haven't heard so far. So it's time to move to you. We have it a different way. We're going to do an interview. So there's no presentations. I hope we will manage to do this while I'm here and you are there. Different places of the world. I'm sure we can. So let me introduce you shortly. We have our chairman of Taste of Denmark, which is actually a cooperative organization of innovative and local food SMEs in Denmark. Laurits Christensen, welcome. And yes, you're online already, good. And we have Maarten Groeneveld, who actually works at a regional cooperative Westerkwartier. So I think what we share here is the word cooperative. Welcome, Maarten.
Thank you, hello.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I hope that by having your answers, we will have a bit of a discussion on the topic of food policies, because this is something that came back in the last couple of hours. And you have actually been working on it, or at least researching it and given some reflective points on that. So we are curious to hear about it. I'm going to start with Maarten, if that's okay, Laurits. Maarten, because in the last couple of months you've been very busy with what is called the Westerkwartier Food Agreement. And maybe you can tell us a bit more about that and why it is actually necessary to have that.
Yes, I can tell you all about it. First, the Westerkwartier is one of the largest rural municipalities of the Netherlands. And food and agricultural is really an important sector in the municipality. But you also see that almost half of the people suffers overweight. Quite a few people go to the food bank, need to go to the food bank. But you also see a movement that more and more short food supply chains are organized. In other words, like food and agriculture has a big impact on the municipality, but also on its inhabitants. And having a food policy is not a legal task for a municipality, but still the municipality of Westerkwartier really would like to have one. Of course, if you know what you want, then it's also easier like to reach that goal. And they also see it like food, they see it as a means to reach other policy goals. For instance, in the employment or social affairs or landscape and biodiversity. And in that way, the municipality gave us the task to organize the process of a food agreement Westerkwartier. And we organized several sessions and invited, it was an open invitation to the region, and all kind of stakeholders attended those sessions, like from people from schools, from care institutions, farmers, processing people, and also inhabitants of the region. From those sessions, we formed working groups, and we made a document, the Food Agreement Westerkwartier, and that one is full of objectives for the coming years. But more than the document, I think it is the start of a movement we started, and a movement of people who wants to build on a regional and sustainable food chain. And to end my story, we're now in the implementation phase, and we also connected to many different domains of the municipality. So we try to tackle the silo thinking we were talking about earlier. And I see this food agreement as a first phase of getting an actual food policy. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Maarten. That is very clear, and probably we can learn from that. I know that you also have a video somewhere online that we are not going to show today, but that could be an inspiration for people that are interested in how to do that, setting up this food agreement. So you can find it on our REFRAME website. As everything, we have a lot on there. Let us move to Denmark then. I mean, Laurits, if you hear what Maarten has been doing and also this integration, trying to break this silo thinking, could you shine a light on how things are in Denmark with the food policies?
Yeah, I'm very impressed about what I hear, because food policies are a paradox in Denmark. On a national scale, as well as in the majority of municipalities and all regions, there are formulated policies in supporting local food production, etc. Millions of euros have been spent in public initiatives to comply with these policies. On the other hand, the vast majority of municipalities and public institutions buy their food from one and the same national supplier. Access to public institutions is hardly any option for food SMEs in Denmark. Local food production and supply was always and is driven by food SMEs and business-to-business collaborations between specialty food producers and specialty food resale. Businesses like slaughter shops, bakeries, etc. become increasingly important. And so is direct sale from producers to consumers via web shops, as we've seen in particular during the COVID-19 crisis.
And Laurits, could you actually, with your background and working in this field, advise local governments on how to actually support local food producers? Just not only in Denmark, but in the rest of Europe. Could you give some advice about this?
Well, first of all, you could buy our products, of course, in local communities, or in municipalities, in public institutions in local communities. And then you should enter a dialogue with local food SMEs and discuss routes of public support. Support cooperative initiatives among the food SMEs instead of institutions copying such initiatives or discussing what we, the innovative food SMEs, ought to be doing. I think the REFRAME approach is an important attempt to comply with the 17 sustainability goals defined by the United Nations. And among food SMEs are the living labs of food production in the future to be found. It is important for local as well as for national and European communities to discuss a to discuss a code of conduct on public funding to accelerate the development of this potential. Direct support is needed in favor of the bottom-up approach for research and development in food SMEs, and direct support is needed for cooperative initiatives of local food supply chains.
So in that you can actually also emphasize or encourage the way, for example, that we saw in Sweden to actually coach on specific themes or actually really help with funding the producers so they can get into that market in a way that is actually appealing to the consumers as well.
Indeed, I can, yes.
Good. So we had a good example there. Maarten, I'm going to move back to you. Of course, the months of working on the details of the food agreement must also have given you some lessons learned of that process. Is there something you can share with our audience, like this is something you should not do or something that worked very well and that you want to share with us?
Yes, I do have some things. We organize the process in a bottom-up way. And of course, that has many advantages. You have a broad support of the stakeholders in the region, for instance. However, like working with so many stakeholders, they all have different opinions and views, of course, and sometimes they clash. And in the world of food and agriculture, there are quite a few different opinions and views. But I think there are even more similarities and shared values as well. And you should emphasize on those, especially in the initial phase, I think. And I think because quite a few entrepreneurs are involved of the process as well, and they have a different speed of working and different flow, and they just do it. And that's what we, sometimes that's what we all can learn sometimes as well. They are really learning by doing, and that helps us. That helps us in this process as well. Yeah.
So actually, REFRAME gave you the opportunity to try things out. And to I don't know, maybe be a bit more ahead of others, but still dare to try and just maybe also fail on the way sometimes. But, if you don't dare to fail, then nothing happens, of course. How is that for you, Laurits? What lessons learned maybe for the years that you have been working in REFRAME, but also for you as a Taste of Denmark of your organization? Can you share some lessons learned there?
Yes, I think REFRAME has been a long journey of lessons learned and the possibility to work with some initiatives and learn even more. One activity from us was mapping supply and demand in island communities, and we were able to document that there is a significant economic benefit of developing local production and supply chains in local communities. The conclusion is evident. Municipalities and regions who would support a sustainable community should support their local food SMEs. Another thing learned is that the 5 partner countries are significantly different, and one initiative being successful in one partner country is not always feasible in another partner country. Copying initiatives is very common in development initiatives, but one has to learn and understand the differences in order to assess if one initiative successful in one region is feasible in a specific community. In addition, within a country, one copy of an initiative will very often compete with another copy of the same initiative, and they will all compete with the original innovative initiative that might have become a success if not subject to competition bias from the copiers. Food specialty producers with terroir qualities potentially may play a significant role in profiling local communities, making them attractive to tourists and immigration of qualified individuals. Iconic food production is what we call this feature. It's not just about being local, it's about the exploitation of specific local conditions of food production to develop sustainability and terroir qualities. Taste of Denmark co-authored the Salfar Interact project as part of REFRAME activity, and it has been a remarkable experience now from our production of salt-tolerant vegetables, once again, that the development of new food products or new principles of productions gains a lot of attention from consumers. Consumers are indeed ready for change, ready for supporting sustainability and production and buying products with focus on environmental protection and climate changes.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that in the 5 years that REFRAME was actually existing, there's quite a shift going on. And as you say, maybe we're more open to these experiments. And as Jan Willem actually said earlier, we are past just giving examples. We're actually doing it and working on concrete activities and work and products that are aligned with the sustainability goals even. So that's great work. Maarten, you talked about these working groups. Is there some concrete example you can give on what you are working on right now today?
Yeah, like we're still working on the ideas, but one of the examples is of the working group Economy and Food Chains. And they are establishing a food box Westerkwartier. And the reason behind this is they want to tackle the problem of accessibility to local food. And they're all entrepreneurs, or food producers are involved in this working group. So they have an additional sales and promotion channel with this food box. And they want to sell it to residents or inhabitants of the municipality, but also to tourists. And in their search for transport and distribution partners, they found partners at the local food bank. So the local food bank is supporting them with a van, but also a care institution. That care institution has 20 vans driving through the municipality all day long, and they will play a role in the transport as well. So those are really nice local combinations made. And like a few weeks ago, the idea started of this food box, and I think in 2 weeks they will start the pilot. So they're really speeding up and just learning by doing.
Yeah, it would be great to follow up on all the initiatives and projects that have been developed in REFRAME. As we said before, it doesn't end here. We're actually just starting, maybe. So thanks a lot to both of you, because I want to give the last minutes to our project leader, Hiltje van der Waal. So thanks a lot, and I hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Hiltje, it's all yours to close this conference.
Okay, thank you. Well, I would like to thank everybody who joined us today and had a contribution. And I think there's a lot of more to tell and to learn. But I would like to tell you that we made a booklet with the harvest of 5 years of REFRAME. It's in English and in Dutch, and it's also online. And of course, the action and all the plans and pilots and projects won't stop here, but we will continue. And if you have any questions, please contact us. You can find all the information on our website, on the REFRAME website. And this conference isn't the end, it's just the beginning, I think. And I hope you enjoyed it this afternoon, and I hope you will enjoy good food tonight and for the rest of your lives, of course. And I thank you for your attention, and please let us know if you want to know something about the project. We will be very happy to answer your questions. Thank you. Have a good evening, and goodbye, and hope to see you again.